So these are two videos that are examples of some displays of Trump supporters. The first I will show is a clip of a silent visual dedicated to families that have suffered at the hands of ICE under Trump's immigration policies. And the second video shows Trump supporters in trucks driving through Black Lives Matter protesters and also macing those protesters.
Children in cages. Respect the demonstration. You know what? You're well trained.
The sidewalk's open, man.
Right.
The sidewalk open.
It's open now, but when I walk, watch this, press. Watch this, guys. Well, she will probably. Oh, there she goes.
Been that way all his life.
To break the law almost legally. That's what's on America.
How many were there?
The same President Obama started the camp.
Trump 2020. Way to go. We got you we got beat you so much, you're going to crawl in the ground and cry.
We'll lose these things.
I love it. Build it wall. Build that wall. Build that wall. That's a love wall.
I'm sorry. This should be a silent visual.
This is a silent vigil. We're not supposed to be laughing. Every now and then something comes up.
And to add, Trump has not condemned the violence that involves his supporters, nor has he condemned white supremacists. People are free to have their own opinions, but openly protesting against rallies dedicated to the social injustices of Black and minority lives cannot be justified, and racism cannot be justified. So Trump's response to Black Lives Matter certainly doesn't line up with the goals of the activists. He has no intention to reform the police in any way. He actually planned to defund the police, or defend the police by funding and hiring more police and law enforcement officers, increase the criminal penalties for assaults on police officers, and bring extremist groups to justice. He specifically mentions Antifa, which is a left-wing and anti-fascist group that has played a significant role in demanding police reform. Bureaucracy. A bureaucratic leader is the third type of leader that Weber mentions in his essay. Drawing directly from his work, bureaucratic leadership is based off the virtue of belief in the validity of legal statute and functional competence based on rationally created rules. Obedience is expected in discharging statutory obligations. So we discussed this in our week 3 Zoom class, and most of us agreed that Donald Trump was all three: traditional, charismatic, and bureaucratic. But upon further research, I think he defies the traits that make a bureaucratic leader. Of course, this hasn't been done in a manner that I agree with, but throughout his term, he has mangled many statutory policies. I also think that my point can be argued. I could probably argue my own point, but nevertheless, I don't think this has resulted in less dominance on his part. I think it has benefited him immensely. From my understanding, a bureaucratic organization is standardized by procedure and rule following, and yes, government organizations are considered bureaucratic organizations, so speaking generally. So Trump is a bureaucrat, but that's only by title. I kind of think he defies bureaucratic strategy by continuously undoing monumental and completely necessary statutes put in place by his forerunners. So examples of this, the Equal Pay Act was initially passed in 1963, but in 2014, it was found that there was still a wage gap between white men and white women, with the gap even higher for women of color. Barack Obama signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act in 2009. This act forced large companies and corporations to report the wages of their employees by gender and race. In 2017, Trump froze this legislation. In doing this, he has given companies more freedom when it comes to underpaying employees. This has resulted in less accountability and likely a larger wage gap. This is not a move that helps people of color in any way, or women, and is proof of his disregard for policies that don't serve his best interest. When the Justice Department made efforts to study, review, and address problematic police departments in the U.S., Donald Trump made efforts to delay this process, one being the Baltimore Police Department after being accused of engaging in discriminatory and unconstitutional policing. DACA, the Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals, was put in place by Obama during his 2 terms as president. This policy basically says that undocumented immigrants who came to the United States when they were children can apply for a renewable 2-year deferment from being deported and become eligible for work permits. Now, the Trump administration has made it so that they will accept no new applicants, all part of a plan to wean immigrants away from the U.S. And on that same topic, he also cut the amount of migrants and refugees allowed from 7 predominantly Muslim countries. This is his travel ban or Muslim ban. Some of the countries affected were Iran, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, Syria, Chad, Iraq, and Sudan. And unrelated to race, but probably one of the biggest ways Trump has tried to prove that he is above the rules is claiming voter fraud and refusing to allow Joe Biden's transition into office. And as I said, some may consider this a bureaucratic strategy, as he obviously holds an incredibly powerful role in government, and what he is doing is essentially taking away and modifying policies as he sees fit, but others may see it as a neglect for the work of his predecessors. So Trump's traditional charisma appeals to a niche group within the United States, and the people who belong to that group are obedient to Trump's words and ways. He has influenced violence within this group and therefore around the world. This is one of the ways he has abused his bureaucratic position. I think that he has let his vanity get the best of him and failed to overcome Weber's 2 deadly sins of politics, which is the lack of objectivity and irresponsibility. Trump inspires his cult, and his cult inspires him, but they also make him nervous. He does whatever he can to remain relevant among this cult or his followers, which therefore proves his lack of objectivity. It is impossible for him to take a stance that doesn't serve his best interests. This leads to irresponsibility. He has allowed racial injustices to occur, those related to police brutality in the Black Lives Matter and the immigration crisis. It's irresponsible in the sense that in order to keep his following strong, he must not budge when it comes to providing a solution and looking at the facts. All these points summarize the creation of a demagogue, a label that fits Donald Trump seamlessly.